Week 2 of the high school football season is in the books. That means it's time for another Under the Lights podcast presented by Sinlawn of Alabama. I'm Kyle Parmley. Gary Lloyd is also here. Gary, did you have a good time out there on Friday night?
I did. I did. Better time Friday night than I did on Thursday night, waiting out some rain and really, really loud thunder and really bright pops of lightning. So Friday night was a piece of cake compared to Thursday.
Yes, I would agree with that because Thursday I had the fortune of being at Protective Stadium for the UAB game, so I was in the press box, a little sheltered. You were, bearing through
I
it
was
at
a
Legion Field.
Yeah, I was a few miles away. We found some concrete to hide under at the old Gray Lady, so we managed.
Well, the Cougars look good at the very least. But before we get into all of the great games we have to talk about, we got a few big ones coming up this week. I want to tell you about our presenting sponsor for the Under the Lights podcast this year. That's Sinlawn of Alabama. That's your go-to for all things artificial turf. Whether you're looking to upgrade your backyard, create a pet-friendly space, or enhance your golf game with a custom putting green, Sinlawn has the solution for you with top-notch installations for both residential and commercial use and wholesale turf sales. Sinlawn of Alabama is the premier choice for artificial turf in the state. Call them at 205-590-9549 or visit the showroom at 2018 Old Montgomery Highway. Sinlawn, artificial grass never looked more natural. Once again, we are waiting on them to install in Gary's backyard so that you can go have a demo for yourself. Gary, I'm waiting on your Sinlawn friends.
I know. We need to get that done. We'll come out and have a putting contest or something.
And you wouldn't mind people just perusing through your backyard to demo the product?
I mean, I've got a gate. I could charge admission and have a little putt contest.
I'm sure Sinlone would love some commission off of that too.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it.
All right, so high school football from last week. It's no question where we're starting. The big city rivalry in Hoover. Spain Park breaks through. They knock off Hoover 39-37. Gary, I was glad I was out there. This was an incredible game. There were 5 touchdowns scored in the fourth quarter, capped off by Corey Barber's 9-yard touchdown pass. Brock Bradley with a perfect fade to the corner of the end zone. And it was just a really special night for the Jags. This is the 3rd time in series history that Spain Park has knocked off Hoover. The other 2 were in that 2015 season that Spain Park made a magical run to the state championship. Otherwise, Hoover has owned this rivalry. Spain Park got close last year, couldn't quite break through, but man, Friday night was a different story. They got out ahead 20-6, even had an opportunity to extend that lead further. Hoover comes charging back in the second half, and it looked like they were going to take the game, but Hoover takes the lead late in the fourth quarter, and Spain Park executes a 2-minute drill to perfection to take the win. Just a huge win for the Jags, and this is something that anybody that's seen what Tim Vakakis is building over there is not wholly surprised by, but this is the one that, this is kind of the breakthrough, it feels like.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely does. Just program defining for him, in year 3, coming in, you have a 3-7 year. Last year they're 7-3 and they're knocking on the door of the playoffs. And then, we knew with them dropping the 6A and some of the guys they had coming back that this had the potential to be a special season just in terms of potentially making the playoffs, a great record, that kind of thing. But in week 2, you have a game like that against your city rival, and then not only 5 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, but kind of the location of that touchdown. The Met gets a little quirky with where people are, and they score it right in front of all their people, and just those little storylines that happen in a game like that. Really special win for them, and kind of outside of that game, I gotta say this. Last year, kind of our game of the year was week 1, John Carroll Homewood. And this year, I don't think there's going to be a game. I mean, I hope there is. I pray there is. But I don't think there's going to be a game that tops Spain Park 39, Hoover 37 that happened in week 2. I would just like Metro Birmingham, all you football teams, let's pace ourselves on these just incredible games of the year. Let's space them out a little bit. Let's get one week 6. We're having all these happen right off the bat in August. Like, we don't even get to Labor Day before we have the games of the year. So let's either spread them out or let's just have some more of them throughout the year.
More of them would be great. How about
I would
even
love it.
maybe like a week 10, playoff berth on the line, winners in, losers out.
Yeah.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah. Something like that. Let's just, week one, week two. I mean, I don't know if next year we'll have to start when schedules start coming out, we'll look at that week three slate, in January or something, and we'll see which game's gonna be our game of the year.
Yep, exactly. Um, Now, as far as this matchup goes, forever this has been a region matchup. Both of these teams were 7A when 7A started about 10 years ago. But this most recent reclassification sends Spain Park down to 6A. But good on both coaches for both schools for continuing this rivalry. It's a really big deal for the city. They have this competition amongst the schools where they try to raise the most money, and that's a big deal. So this is still one of those, and I'm glad that it's still a. Now, don't get me wrong. There's plenty of vitriol at spots in this rivalry, but this is still the school system does a great job of maintaining the balance between the two schools and the relationship. And it was a lot of fun. The Hoover Met was the perfect spot for that game on Friday night because you walk in, it feels like a big game. People are going crazy from the jump, and yeah, that was a really cool environment to be a part of. And yeah, it was. You think talking to quarterback Brock Bradley after the game, the one thing that really stuck with me was him saying that he called it taking the city back. That's been something that he's wanted to do his entire life, and that's really cool. And obviously something like that is not permanent. Hoover's going to get their chance to reclaim this side of the rivalry, but just to realize some dreams like that that's what makes this kind of stuff special.
Sports.
Sports, as you love to say, Gary. Now, as for let's talk about the two games that you were at this week. On Thursday, you saw Clay Chalkville beat Ramsey 62-7. The Cougars look very much the part of one of the best 6A teams in the state. And you also saw Homewood beat Briarwood 28-7 on Friday. So give us a little glimpse of what you saw those two nights.
Like I said in the open, I saw a lot of rain Thursday, and then I saw Clay Chalkville rain down on Ramsey. I mean, it was close kind of to start. Ramsey kind of got a quick one after Clay scored, and then Clay said, "No more of that." Aaron Fry, quarterback, he had an unbelievable night. He throws for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Really spread it around, found a lot of guys. Jabari Staples is a wide receiver, tight end, kind of hybrid kind of guy who is already making tons of noise, but will only continue to do so. He is a threat from anywhere on the field. And then the defense was just flying, man. I mean, they're so fast. They picked off Ramsey. They're in guys' grills. They're in the backfield. Ramsey was just, and it's weird to say that, but like Ramsey was just completely overmatched. Like I know it's a 6A versus a 5A, but given the what we're used to out of a Ramsey, it was wild to see because they still had playmakers. Keenan's still back there at quarterback. I'm blanking on the guy's name, but the running back had like 12 carries for 90 yards, so like he kind of got his. But it wasn't even bend but don't break. They still, even though some guys maybe got their numbers, they were still completely dominated. So that Clay Chalkville team, I don't know if there's some sort of chip on the shoulder, prove some people wrong, disrespect kind of deal, but whatever it is, it worked Thursday, and we will see if they can continue making that happen as region play goes. And then on Friday at Homewood, that was my first time back out there since they've had some renovations and some things kind of
Mhm.
redone, and it looked great. That was that was awesome, and it wasn't too hot, which was great. But big time second quarter for Homewood. They rushed for all four of their touchdowns, and Will Myers scores three of them from the quarterback spot. He ran for uh, two touchdowns of 50 plus yards just in the second quarter alone. And, the game was 28-7 at half. Nobody scored in the second half, and deadline was a breeze to make because of it. Now Coach Ben Bergeson for Homewood said, that third quarter, second half so far, just through 2 games, has kind of been their bugaboo. He's like, we've got to keep our foot on the gas and figure out why we're not quite a second half team, because sooner rather than later we're gonna need some production in the second half, and credit Briarwood for making some adjustments and kind of keeping them in check, in the second half. And then for Briarwood, without Luke Reynolds, who knows how long he'll be out. Obviously, he didn't play at Homewood, saw him on the sideline, in street clothes, dealing with some injury that he sustained in the Oak Mountain game. They just can't run the ball. Couldn't get a push, couldn't get anything going. They could throw it a little bit. Their one touchdown was a 75-yarder to Dane Whitehead, and that was a big play. Charles Dedmon hit him in stride. It's a beautiful play, but other than that, there just wasn't much doing. So Briarwood's really got to find, at least for the short term, find an identity in a way, find some production outside of Luke Reynolds. Dane Whitehead seems like a big play or a really good go-to receiver. But you got to be able to run the ball too. So they've got a really big one coming up this week. You don't want to drop to 0-3, but you certainly don't want to start off with a region loss at home. So that's pretty much what I saw in 2 nights.
Let's run through the rest of last Friday night's games. Chelsea beats Wetumpka 15-14. The Hornets are 2-0 after a late touchdown to win that one. Hewitt-Trussville rolls past Gadsden City 42-14. James Kelly scores 3 touchdowns for the Huskies to lead the charge there. John Carroll falls to St. Michael and Phillip Rivers 20-19. Oddly enough, Gunnar Rivers, his son, scores the game-winning touchdown late there. Parker beats Mountain Brook 30-14. The Spartans had a halftime lead. They couldn't quite hold on to it against one of 6A's best. Oak Mountain goes to 2-0 with a 38-20 win over Pelham. Willowdale goes for 1 million yards once again. And Vestavia Hills falls to Auburn 52-17. Gary, any final words on any of those matchups?
Just the one I want to touch on, because most of those games speak for themselves. But I really want to touch on Chelsea just for a quick second. Back 2-0, they get down 14-0, and then just the grit. I think Coach Cassidy talked about it in post game. Just the grit, that will to win. But a guy I really want to point out, Romello Cooper for Chelsea, the defender, our guy that covered the game, Josh Gleason. I'm looking. He had him for 4 tackles, 2 sacks, and 6 quarterback pressures in the first half, and then another sack and 2 more QB pressures in the second half. So 8 QB pressures, 3 sacks in the game. They hold Wetumpka to no points in the second half and allow the offense to do just enough to come away with the win. That is another special defensive performance from the Hornets. And if that offense catches up with what that defense has done the first 2 weeks, they'll might make a little noise now that they're back in 6A.
Yeah, great to see that game. Chelsea get off to that good start again. I would also just, very impressive. It was hard to imagine Will Odell would follow up his season opening performance with another 400-plus yard game. But, yeah, he's done it all for the Eagles in 2 weeks.
Yeah, he's a video game right now.
Now the schedule gets real for them and for a lot of folks. But, all right, so that's our last week highlight recap. Now it's time to hear from the coach of the winning team in our game of the week, Spain Park head coach Tim Vakakis, set to join us on the Under the Lights podcast presented by Sinlawn. Happy to be joined by Spain Park head coach Tim Vakakis this week on the Under the Lights podcast. Coach, you guys coming off a big 39-37 win over Hoover. Just tell me a little bit about the night. Did you kind of feel it going in that your guys were ready for that moment?
Well, I mean, myself and our coaches, we felt like our kids weren't going to be scared. They worked too hard to be scared of anything or anybody, and we knew our kids were going to come out fighting. We told them all week that the toughest team is going to figure out a way to win. It might be ugly, it might not look, not be perfect. They're going to hit back because they're a heavyweight too. we said the toughest team's going to figure out a way to win, and it's not about being able to punch; it's being able to punch back and have a chin. And I feel like what we do on a day-to-day basis, week to week, month to month, year to year basis creates that chin. And our kids really showed a lot of fight the other night. When we got down to 4th and long on the last drive, and Brock Bradley just made a play, and I don't know, it meant a lot to a lot of people, and our kids are. We talked all off season about playing for each other instead of with, and because when you're playing for somebody else, you don't want to let them down. If you're playing with somebody, you do your own thing and they do their thing. But our kids are playing for each other, and it was a really fun night.
You said, because they're a heavyweight too. I know, I mean, that implies that you guys are heavyweights. I'm wondering that journey from year 1, 3-7 at Spain Park, 7-3 last year to early this year. What's that changing of that mindset or that improving of that mindset been like to get these guys feeling like, hey, you belong in this conversation?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with confidence, and we have a strong football team, and that doesn't just happen overnight. That doesn't just happen because, we got 50 kids power cleaning at least 225, and we've got, we got our top 10 benchers. To even be on the top 10 board, you got to at least be at 290, and we're maxing this week. So we're going to max this week, and we're probably going to max at least one more time during the regular season. And I think that confidence that the kids create for themselves individually in that weight room, I think it just bleeds over to everything else. And, our first year, we kind of got pushed around a little bit, and those kids fought their butts off. But here we are in year 3, and we've got a couple of classes back to back to back that have been doing what we do in the weight room. We lift 4 days a week. We lift 4 days a week last week. We're lifting 4 days a week this week. We're going to lift 4 days a week next week and the week after. And in December, we're going to lift 4 days a week. In March, we're lifting 4 days a week. It doesn't matter. And I think that consistency, it just breeds confidence. And our kids have really bought into it.
Coach, I can think about being at the Spain Park Hoover game last year and just remembering how, you guys put forth a really good effort in that game, but I think you were down to, a 6-string running back, and it just kind of got away from you guys at the end. And then I parallel that to this year and realize, like, you guys jump out ahead, but then Hoover bounces. I mean, Hoover battles back. They take the lead, but your guys didn't wilt in that moment. Like, how does a team go from maybe not being ready for that moment to now, like you saw on Friday night, they were ready for that moment and they didn't cower down when it mattered?
I mean, we talked all week about, whenever you get in that moment, to keep swinging. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. We even talked about at halftime. We had a lead at halftime, and we had a kick call back. So it should have been a little bit bigger lead, but we made a mistake. And I said it might be ugly second half. Our lead might get bigger. They might take the lead. It might go back and forth. Like, you can't plan what you're about to go walk out to the second half. But they have a lot of good football players on that team. They have really good coaches. And it means a lot to those kids too. So it was going to be ugly, and just figure out a way, just figure it out. And these kids, Kyle, we had a kid, senior, who had a death in his family, and his grandfather died last week, and they had the funeral in Tennessee on Friday. So it meant a lot to him. It meant enough to him for his teammates that he figured out a way. He came directly to the Met. They left Tennessee after the funeral. Our coaches had all of his equipment, had everything with him there, everything for him. He comes directly to the stadium. He comes straight to the Met right before kickoff, and he doesn't miss kickoff. So you got kids like that are doing things like that they care about each other. It meant a lot for him to be there for his teammates. And when you start having stuff like that happen, it's a really good sign. And I'm not saying our kids were prepared for the moment, but at the same time, we do that 2-minute drill a lot, and Brock Bradley is, some days he has good days doing a 2-minute drill, but he's gotten so much better at it that nobody panicked. I'd like to tell you that 4th and 11 scramble is how we draw it up. I'd like to tell you that the triple reverse, whatever that was, is how we drew it up. But Sometimes just kids make plays in spite of their coaching. And that's kind of what happened Friday night. But they weren't scared and they just kept swinging.
Gary,
Have you?
let me tell you about
Yeah,
that
go ahead.
triple reverse. I have
Uh,
never seen a triple reverse actually work where every leg of the reverse should have gotten completely blown up. Like every toss and missed change of direction should have been destroyed in the backfield. And somehow the ball gets back to Brock for a completion.
well, Brock went and got it. He saw it going bad, and he said, "I didn't think the ball would ever get to me," so he just went and got it. So I didn't even want to watch. Like I just wanted to turn my head. But somebody said, "We got guys open." I looked up, and sure enough, he found Corey Barber, and it was a big play.
Yep.
That's crazy. Have you ever been a part of a game quite like that, even at JO?
All right, so that makes me think of 2010 Fairfield. All right, Jameis Winston is at Hueytown, and we went in halftime down 41-6. All right, they were clowning on us. I mean, it was bad, and we had a really good team that year. Well, I remember Pop came in at halftime. He told the coaches, "We're not going to go off on the kids because that was about as bad as we could have played." So it was 41-6 at halftime. We went for two at the end of the game to take the lead. We lost 49-48. So that was an absolute unreal experience. But this, being on the big stage, Spain Park, Hoover, being at the Met, statewide live audience, just all the things that go into this rivalry. In 24 years, nothing's been able to top this.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So this game is a big deal to a lot of people. I'd love to know what, you only being at Spain Park a few years, what are some things that you've heard from the people in the community that have been Spain Park lifers or have been around a long time on, this is a thing that's only happened, twice before, but really only once because it both happened in the same year. So what's this felt like to some of those people that have been around a long time?
Well, so like my cousin Daniel Watkins, he played on the team that got beat in the championship game here at Spain Park against Prattville one year, or maybe McGill too. I don't know, but and he was on the field after the game, and he just gave me the biggest hug, and he was crying, and I received a bunch of texts from just people in the community, parents, alumni, old players that I didn't know. I didn't have their number saved in my phone, didn't know who it was, but they told me who it was. So obviously it's a big deal. And to be honest with you, Kyle, I didn't know when the last time Spain Park had won. I didn't know what the series was. None of that stuff matters. Like I really don't care. We didn't talk about it to the kids. Like we hadn't beaten them in X amount of years like that. That'll get you fired up for a minute, but that's not going to win a game. Like that's not real motivation. It just isn't. So we didn't talk about it. But knowing that that it had been that long. I mean, you saw the elation from our student section. You saw the crowd. I mean, the students rushed the field, and I thought it was it was pretty cool that game. The final touchdown was in the corner, exactly where our cheerleaders were, our student section was, and our band. And usually they're in their own side, but as the Met, that they didn't have as many bleachers on the side for all of them, so they put them in the end zone, and that's exactly where the game ended. It's almost just kind of poetic, So I don't know. It was just our night, but it's our job to big picture, not be another 8 years before winning that series again.
What kind of growth have you seen from Brock, like over the summer, spring, summer, just from last year to so far this year? What have been the big things that he's gotten better at?
I can't say confidence because that kid's been confident. I think he was confident when he came out of the womb, so it wouldn't be confidence. I think just control. Like he knows that this offense clicks and it goes as he goes, And I think he's gotten better at executing, not necessarily trying to make that big throw and just execute the offense. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think he's gotten better at that, of knowing where the ball is supposed to go, who he's supposed to read, put his eyes on where they're supposed to be. Um, and he's very talented. He's still, we left some plays on the field. I mean, there was a couple plays that, that we could have scored a couple more times. We just didn't do it. Obviously, Hoover had a lot to do with that because they had really good players too. But I think just his confidence and execution in what we're doing, he's very confident.
Last thing for you, Coach. So two things. What do you do with a bye week so early in the season, and then how do you kind of take all of this from the first 2 weeks and use it to build towards the region games that count towards where you're going to end up at the end of the year?
Well, man, I'm not smart enough to come up with some cute schedule or some cute slogan or some hashtag saying that. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to do. We got back in the weight room this morning at 6:30, and we're gonna lift 4 times this week, and we're gonna practice for it. Like I don't know anything else. Like I don't know. We gave the kids off, an extra day and just kind of let them, because that was a tough game Friday night, physically, emotionally. Like the kids needed a break. Our coaches needed a break. But we're right back at it today, and we watched the film about it this morning. We're gonna have our team meeting this afternoon, and we're gonna get back on the practice field and try to get better at blocking and tackling. And tomorrow we're gonna get back in the weight room, and hopefully our incline maxes go up. And Thursday, hopefully our power clean max goes up, and Friday, I hope our bench max goes up. So, I mean, we just rinse, repeat. That's all we do.
Love it. Well, Spain Park coach Tim Vakakis, thank you for joining us on the podcast this week. We can't wait to see how the rest of the season goes. Big game on Friday night at Hoover. That was awesome to see. So we wish you the best going forward, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again soon.
Guys, thanks for having me, and thank you for everything y'all do for football around here. These kids and families, they really love watching what y'all do. So thank you.
We appreciate
it, Coach.
Big thanks to Coach Vakakis for coming on with us. I know that was a big win for him and his program, and they've got big goals for this season. So that's just one small step, and kind of setting the stage for what they hope is a quite a successful year, and it looks like they have the pieces to do so. All right, Gary, top performers time. Second week that we've had the Player of the Week vote up on the Under the Lights Twitter page, and I guess it's time to tell you who won. Oddly enough, for the second straight week, an Oak Mountain Eagle is our Under the Lights Player of the Week. This time, wide receiver Zach Fitzgerald. We talked about Will Odell as quarterback earlier. Fitzgerald was on the receiving end of 2 of those touchdowns. He had 3 catches for 167 yards. Gary, I'm not very good at math. That's over That's over 50 yards a touch. I don't know what that adds up to. Like 55, something like that.
I don't know. I do words, not numbers. But yeah, 50 something.
50 something. Zach Fitzgerald, great ball game, big play threat for the Eagles. He wins our Under the Lights Player of the Week vote. A few more top performers that were up for vote. Homewood quarterback Will Myers. He scored on touchdown runs of 55, 52, and 5 yards. Finished with 126 rushing yards, completed 13 of 17 passes for 131 yards. Another big night for him. We talked about Hewitt-Trussville running back James Kelly, 75 rushing yards on the ground, 43 yards receiving, 3 total touchdowns, and also Spain Park wide receiver Corey Barber. He had a big night in the win over Hoover, 9 catches, 216 yards, and a couple of touchdowns, including the game winner. So some great choices there, but Oak Mountain wide receiver Zach Fitzgerald is the man that gets that rounds up the most votes. So congrats to him, and looking forward to having a few more new names and new faces on the Player of the Week vote after week 3, which is what it's time to talk about. Isn't it crazy? Like it takes so long to get through the summer, and then it's like boom, boom, boom. Now it's week 3.
Yeah, quick.
It happens fast. So, all right, Gary, I will be at our Under the Lights Game of the Week, which we haven't told y'all what it is yet. So we're about to tell you that right now. I believe I'm going to go to Hewitt-Trussville at Vestavia Hills as the Huskies and Rebels get Class 7A Region 3 play started. These are 2 teams that have had wildly different starts to the year. The Huskies have kind of been able to ease into things a little bit. they played two teams that they're significantly better than, and they've looked really impressive in doing so. Hewitt Trussville's got a lot of new guys they're breaking in, and those are the types of games that makes coaches a lot more comfortable being able to do that in those scenarios. As for Vestavia, they've got a lot of the same young guys trying to break in some new pieces, and they have not played opponents that are that are inferior to them. They have played two of the best, most talented 7A teams you could find to start the year with Carver, Montgomery, and Auburn, and it has not gone well for the Rebels. So Vestavia gets to play their first home game this Friday night, and man, this is an opportunity for them to kind of settle in to what they are going to be and try to be this year. Hopefully, they'll get a few more of those guys back from injury, but I would expect Vestavia to be charged up for this one. This is going to be it's a fun start to region play, and it's also a really important game right out of the gate for both teams.
Yeah, it feels like you hate to get ahead of yourself, like the week after Labor Day and be like, playoffs are on the line. But like 7A Region 3, like, I'm sorry, week after week, playoff spots on the line. Like, look at last year. I was talking about Spain Park and how, you know, how that game against Hoover ended up kind of the deciding factor. And that was what, a week 3 type game. And they had injuries and lost the game. And ultimately, that's the loss that, if you want to point it to, pretty much kept them out. So, yeah, and Hewitt Vestavia has been a key game for playoff seeding over the last few years. So, it's big for both. And for me, it's just this is a big questions answered kind of game, at least what we know so far about both teams. I will say, yes, Hewitt Trustful proved themselves obviously more talented than Gadsden City, but Gadsden City, like we talked about last week, certainly no pushover. And
Yep.
Hewitt Trustful just seemed like they had the game plan to say, I mean, their whole moniker is Husky Fast, and they said that's what we're going to do, and we know that your defense is an athletic one, is a good one, and we're going to wear you out. And then they came out there and executed it. So, the coaching staff obviously did a great job there, putting the guys where they needed to be, and then those guys just straight up executed it. So kudos to them, but they've played both games at home. Vestavia Hills, like we talked about, they've played both games away from home. So I think this is a big convergence of questions answered for both teams. Like, what does Hewitt Trustful truly have now that some of these new guys, Noah Dobbins is going to play a tougher opponent on the road. Vestavia Hills, like you said, juiced up, playing at home. Maybe they'll have some guys back. So I'm looking forward to seeing, kind of how this one unfolds and what we might learn about both teams. Can Vestavia Hills, can that defense kind of slow down this Hewitt Trustful offense, and does Hewitt, quote unquote, come back to earth a little bit, playing on the road and playing maybe a tougher opponent. So I'm hoping for another good one for you. Maybe not an all-time classic, since I've been going to some not very close games so far, but hopefully it's a well-played game.
Yeah, well, let me just tell you, both of these teams have a lot to live up to. Our first two under the lights games of the week have been phenomenal. Oak Mountain beating Briarwood 38-28, and then Spain Park beating Hoover last week. It's been spectacular. So hopefully this game will live up to it. We will get back to some of the other Region 3 games because, like you said, it does feel odd that you've already got some of those matchups between evenly matched teams that are like, oh, this could be really big come the end of the year in terms of playoff berth, seeding, both. So we'll see. But I do want to let's go with a game. We've got a Thursday night game this week, so let's touch on that one. John Carroll paying a visit to Carver, Birmingham. This is the first region game of the year for both of these schools. John Carroll has certainly challenged themselves the first 2 weeks. They played Homewood first week, went down to Fairhope and played St. Michael last week. So I think while they don't want to be 0-2, they've learned a lot. They've kind of figured some things out, and I thought they played really well against St. Michael overall last week. Just some things here and there, and that's a totally different ball game. So this is an opportunity. If they start out 1-0 in region, like, you got to feel really good about them getting a second straight playoff berth.
Yeah, is it right? Like, is it right that Carver Birmingham has not played a game yet? Am I completely amiss here?
So I had to do some digging as well. I think Carver has played a game. I think they played that first Thursday night.
Okay.
Sometimes things get a little twisted where it doesn't know, like sometimes some of these games are like jamborees that don't count.
Yeah.
I think Carver
Right.
has played a game. I think they lost to Southside Selma um, on
Okay.
like the
That's who
first
that
Thursday of the
was.
year, but they did not play last week for sure.
Didn't play last week. Yeah. I think, I mean, if it was the first game for them, I'd be like, well, John Carroll comes in having tested itself and Carver doesn't know what they've got.
Right.
But, I still think probably, John Carroll, with the way they tested themselves and some of the guys they have had come back, I think John Carroll's probably the better team. You still got to go play the game on the road, but Aubrey Walker, might be the best player, in our coverage area that people don't know about or haven't thought much about, just because John Carroll at a 5A type level. We're used to talking about Hoover and Spain Park and etc. But Aubrey Walker will do it on both sides of the field. He did it at St. Michael. He scored on a 57-yard touchdown reception, rushed for another. He's going to get 5-6 tackles a game. He's a 5-tool player on a football field. He kind of does it all. And Garrett Barnes, I think, is going to week after week continue to prove himself more than serviceable as a quarterback, as a passer. So I think this is a good opportunity for John Carroll to go in and get win number 1 of the season and get what will amount to a key region win on the road.
Yeah, and sticking in Class 5A Region 5, you've got Briarwood playing host to Ramsey. These are two 0-2 squads, oddly enough. But one of them's going to get their first win on Friday night, and it's going to be a good region win because these are two teams that you kind of expect to see in the playoffs when you look at the full picture of this region. So, considering what we've seen from both teams, this is a really good opportunity for Briarwood to kind of get on track, kind of figure out what they are, what they want to be, and hopefully kind of stem the tide as they wait on star player Luke Reynolds to get back.
Yeah, I mean, the loser of this game, like, I know ultimately you're only 0-1 in the region, and that's not the end of the world, but either way it goes, how wild would that be to see Briarwood 0-3 or see Ramsey 0-3? Like, you would be like, what? Like, something's wrong here, and one of them will be. And they're both reeling a little bit, and it's Briarwood's first game at home. So, like you said, if Luke Reynolds isn't ready to go yet, some guys got to step up, see what Coach Forrester and company can do offensively, and see what Charles Dedman does at quarterback. If Braden Robertson plays again at quarterback, they both kind of split some time at Homewood and both did some good things. Still a lot to work on, and that place is always juiced up, whether they're 0-2 or not. I mean, you know what happened the last time Briarwood was 0-2 in Class 5A? 2019, they went to the 5A semifinals. So it's you keep growing, keep building, and they'll get there. And it's a really good opportunity for them this week.
Absolutely. Let's jump up to Class 6A. In Region 3, Spain Park is off this week, but also in that region, one of our teams, Chelsea, 2-0, heading to Pelham, who dropped 0-2 last week. If I'm not mistaken, Chelsea's been 3-0 not too terribly long ago. It might be that year that they started, the last time they won their season opener, that 2016 that we talked about a couple weeks ago. But based on what I've seen from Pelham so far, this is a game Chelsea should win. Chelsea is a team that they've been clamoring to get back into 6A region play, where they feel like this is a more even playing field. And hey, here's your opportunity to show that that's the truth. So you mentioned Chelsea's big win over Wetumpka last week, and those kind of things have got to give them confidence. They've fought so hard the last 2 years and just been, more or less beat down both on the field and, just emotionally about, playing in that 7A Region 3. So playing in 6A Region 3, probably going to feel a lot better for the Hornets, and I think they've got a good opportunity here Friday night.
I think so too. I mean, Pelham lost a lot, and they've given up 73 points in 2 games. So while Chelsea hasn't, in 2 games hasn't set the world on fire offensively, their defense has been more than good enough, obviously, to get, to hold their opponent to enough that the offense can get enough points to win. So I think this maybe has the makings of, I don't want to say a offensive breakout performance or put any kind of label on it, but I think Chelsea's got more than enough in the tank this week to go into Pelham and get this win.
Yep, let's stick in 6A. Clay Chalkville paying a visit to Pell City. I'm just going to be honest with you. This kind of feels like a name your score type of game for Clay Chalkville. They kind of already do that anyways, if we're being honest. So, especially what you saw against Ramsey last week. But yeah, I think this Clay Chalkville team they seem to be already like I'll say this, they're a lot more comfortable with their personnel than maybe I thought they would be right off the bat. I thought they would kind of need to feel like they ease into things, but I mean, you could speak on what you saw last week, but it seems like they already kind of have a really good idea of what they have and what they want to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you lose, some of the guys they lost, and then you see what they did against Ramsey. I mean, it was just like, whoa. Like I thought Clay Chalkville would win the game, but like I was talking with, our buddy Jeff Allison and some other folks, and with like I kind of thought this would be like like against Ramsey, I kind of foresaw like a 34-20 type of game, or so they win comfortably, but not 62-7. And then Pell City coming off a loss to 2A Coosa Christian, and now Coosa Christian typically isn't your typical 2A team, but you score 7 points against Coosa Christian after beating Pelham week 1. I don't really know what we've got there with Pell City,
That's
but
confusing.
that's very confusing. But we certainly know what we've got with Clay Chalkville. And a guy I didn't mention earlier, I mentioned Aaron Fry, I mentioned Jabari Staples, Marlon Compton's still there. He's a really good wideout. But this running back tandem that they've got going, that they had going against Ramsey, we know about Aaron Osley. He's been doing it the last couple of years. He had a great night. But Josh Woods, I asked Coach Floyd about him post game because he ran wild, and I was like, "Well, what are you kind of thoughts on him?" And all he said was, "I would not want to try to tackle him." And I don't think you could sum it up any better if you've seen him play. He will run you over, and just an absolutely tough running back, and just I mean, he's fast, he's quick, but man, he's built kind of like a linebacker too, and he ran wild. So, yeah, I think this is a name your score. Clay Chalkville kind of checks this one off the schedule and moves on.
Yeah, I'll give you a little a fun story here on the Clay Chalkville Pell City matchup. These teams have played 16 times in their histories, and Pell City has won a grand total of one of them, and it was back in 2007. And back in 2007, you had a freshman me in the stands that evening as part of the whatever we called it, the marching Cougar band. I don't know what we were, but yeah, little freshman me was out there in the stands watching the Clay Chalkville football team lose to Pell City, and just like head in hands, just wondering what in the world is happening right now. I think
You were in the
it was a one.
band.
It was do what?
You were in the band.
Yeah, for 2 years, and then I realized I actually enjoyed watching the football games, and so I ditched that real quick. So, yeah, that was
What instrument?
I was a drummer. Come on now.
Love it. Okay.
Yeah, so fun times. I was a part of the band during two of probably the two worst years in Clay Chalkville football history. So, there's an omen there, I guess. All right, Gary, we got one more 6A game to touch on. Let's talk about Homewood at Mortimer Jordan. You saw Homewood last week go to 2-0, and this Mortimer Jordan team has struggled in its first two games. So I kind of keep saying it, keep writing about it, but this Homewood team, I thought they would start hot. Like they already knew what they had. They knew what they wanted to do. There wasn't a whole lot of experimentation needed. They just come out of the gates firing, and they've done that the first 2 weeks. So they keep that momentum going. They're going to be 1-0 in region play pretty easily.
Yeah, I feel this way a little bit, kind of how I do about Kelsey at Pelham, where like Mortimer Jordan is 0-2, Pelham is 0-2, and Mortimer Jordan so far has allowed 42 points and 35 points to start the season. And so I think this is kind of one of those games where, Coach Bergeson was happy with the win. Your guys had a great first half, but it didn't quite carry over to the second half. I think maybe we get the full complete game here. You know, Will Myers running, throwing the ball, Evan Osmer running the ball, Kyla Newell, Caleb Carson doing their thing on the outside, and I think Homewood might put up quite a few points in this game.
I said there was one more. There is one more 6A game. Mountain Brook paying a visit to Hueytown. This is interesting because most everybody else is starting region play this week, but Mountain Brook's got one more tune-up before they really get into the meat of everything. So this Mountain Brook team is, I don't know. It's. I thought they really showed well for themselves against Parker last week, even though you don't like to lose by 2 touchdowns under any scenario. But the way they started fast against Parker, they had a halftime lead, and obviously they let it slip. But I thought that spoke really well for this Mountain Brook team. So I'd be really interested to see what they can do against Hueytown.
I would too, because I mean, like Hueytown, I just don't know anything about. You know, like our friend William Galloway was messaging me, you know, the other day about the Hueytown team, and I was like, I really don't know. Like they played Clay Chalkville week 1, they lost 28-7, and that's all we've got on them. You know, so you'll have to report back to me after this game against the Gophers this Friday. You know, and tell me how Mountain Brook looked and how Hueytown looked. But you know, it does feel like this start for Mountain Brook going on the road to Demopolis in that kind of quirky game we talked about, but going down there and shutting them out, and then really maybe showing a blueprint to how to keep some teams close with Parker. You know, that team is just so talented, and like you said, they showed themselves well, and you know, this seems like a team that while young and maybe we don't know a lot of the names, seems like a team that's going to be there late, that really has a chance to maybe do something come November. And I do have to say, I love, you know, anytime we talk to Coach Yeager, or, you know, you read a game story, him talking about there's winners and there's learners. You know, he said that post game, and, you know, what is our team going to take from losing to Parker, you know, the way they did in that second half. And, you know, are you going to learn from it and ascend and keep building? Or is this going to be something that, you know, maybe breaks you, or, you know, that kind of thing. So I think that team always has the right mindset, and we'll see how it plays out for them.
Let's jump back into 7A Region 3. We talked about the Hewitt Vestavia game being kind of an important one. And the other two we've got to cover kind of fall into that same boat. Hoover is paying a visit to Hillcrest. Hillcrest is one of these teams that has jumped up from 6A to 7A. They've been a really strong program the last few years, and we're about to find out if they have what it takes to stick in this 7A region. Hoover, obviously, tough loss last week against Spain Park, but I mean, I think Spain Park is one of the best teams in 6A, period. And I think when I've said that to people throughout the preseason and early on here, I've been met with a little bit of, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves, but I think they are, like, absolutely. And so Hoover losing to them last week is not, you know, some significant, you know, horrible thing. But now it gets real. The Bucks are going on the road to Hillcrest. This is, I mean, shoot, this might be, if Hillcrest is going to make the playoffs, they need to win this game. So this is going to be a big test for both squads.
Yeah, and if Hillcrest does win this game, it would bring their grand total number of wins over Hoover in school history to
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Hoover 6-0 all time against Hillcrest. Now those games are 2003 to 2013, so I think during those years Hoover was pretty good.
Yeah, I would say so.
Not bad. So, you know, this is new territory for Hoover. It's new territory for Hillcrest. Hillcrest gets them coming to town to open region play, you know. So, like, I know Coach Mitchell will have those guys fired up. And look, I mean, like we've talked about with some other teams that have made that move up, you know, not your typical 7A newcomer or whatever. Like Hillcrest has kind of dominated some regular seasons and a good portion of playoffs in 6A. Bryson Kimbrough is a wonderful quarterback. Jacoby Harris, running back, he's explosive. So this is, I mean, you're going to have to wipe that slate clean quick if you're Coach English and that Hoover team. No hangover from that Spain Park loss, because you're going into what will be a hostile environment against a really good opponent. So you're going to have to take care of that ball and keep it away from Hillcrest and sustain some drives and, just put some points on the board for sure.
Last great Alabama running back to come out of Hillcrest was
Brian Robinson?
Bingo. Yeah, he was kind of good.
Where'd he play?
That's what I was saying. The last great Alabama running back.
Oh, I thought you were talking about state of Alabama.
Nah,
Okay.
Alabama running back. Yeah. And as we're recording this right now, I get a text from one of our friends. You got Hoover beating Hillcrest? ? I don't know if I do.
I know who that came from.
I kind of expect. I expect this to be a really good game. I have no idea because, like you said, I just don't know.
Yeah.
How Hillcrest squares up with these 7A teams, but
Yep.
All right, the game you're heading out to Herdmont Park to see a couple of 2-0 squads, two teams that really. I hate to say this, but the way that Region 3 stacks up, if Oak Mountain or Prattville have any hopes of making the playoffs, they have to win this game. Like, I hate to say that in game 3, but if either one of these teams wants to even have a chance to make it out of Region 3, this is it. This is the game you got to win.
Such a big game right off the bat too, and it's kind of like the Hoover Hillcrest. What are we going to get? I think maybe this is just me, but I think maybe we know a little bit more of maybe the type of game we might see in this one versus a Hoover Hillcrest. I think both these teams put up a lot of points. I think this maybe has the makings of a bit of a shootout. Now I say that you will expect my 17-10 game story around 10:30 p.m. But I think this does have a first one to 38, a first one to 45 type of feel to it, and I know Prattville's, that they want to show that, hey, we belong in this region, and, a road game at Oak Mountain that's put up points like this would certainly be a statement of sorts. So their quarterback, Gavin Rigdon, that's a great offense. They put up 41 to start the year on Pike Road. Maybe Pike Road's not, at least so far, not quite what we thought they would be in 6A. But I did look, and both of these teams gunning for 3-0 starts, and they've played twice in their school's histories, and both have been close. So Oak Mountain won 21-17 in 2012, and then a year later, Prattville won 28-21. So maybe, just maybe, I will get the classic close game this week.
Any of those guys from that 2013 game still playing?
Yeah, of course. The backyard football with their kids.
That got me. Correct. So I'm going to make a prediction for you right now in this game. Oak Mountain quarterback Will Odell, 500 total yards.
Wow.
500.
All right. 500. So, okay. So my gosh, what do you got him? 300 passing, 200 rushing?
Sure. 300 rushing, 400 rushing. It doesn't matter.
My gosh. You know what? My gamer's going to be late if that's the case, because there will be points on the board.
Yeah. So like you said, because we say this, it'll be 10-3. It'll be a defensive slugfest. And you got to think Prattville has seen the film from the first two games and thought, what do we got to do to slow down this quarterback? I'm sure that's going to be top of mind for them. So we will see. Is that all the games we got to cover?
I think that's all the games we got. Just one Thursday game this week and region play.
All right. Well, we've been driving towards it the whole podcast, the Under the Lights podcast presented by Sinlawn. Now we're to our goal line stand. And what I want to know, since I punished Gary last year by never sending him out to Homewood. Well, Gary, first of all, did you remember how to get to Waldrop Stadium?
It took me a bit. I got turned around, 65 was tough, and had to look around. I was like, that's new. Where am I? But I finally made it there and got me a decent parking spot. And, then truly, I know we're joking a little bit, but then I was literally like, is this the same stadium? Because they had all the renovations since I've been there. And yeah, so eventually found my way to Snow Drive. Did not come home with another dog from the nearby Humane Society that's right up the road. So dodged that. And yeah, it looks great out there, honestly. Such a cool jumbotron and what they've done just all over that place. It's a wonderful place for a high school football game. I was glad to be back.
Yeah, that's kind of why I mentioned that to you, because from the last time you were there, it probably looks like a completely different stadium with the way they've done the front facing and just all the
Yeah.
stuff that they've done to it.
Yeah, it looked wonderful.
Yep, good place to play a high school football game, and we got plenty more of those coming this week. John Carroll starts Thursday. We got a full slate on Friday. Don't forget, follow Under the Lights on whatever your preferred social media channel is. Our preference is that you just follow all of them: Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. We've got them all. Go find Under the Lights 365. It's on Twitter at Underlights 365. You can also follow us on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it. I'm at Kyle Parmley. He's at Gary A. Lloyd. And be sure to sign up for our Saturday morning newsletter. All the stuff that we just scramble to get to the finish line on Friday nights hit your inbox at 7 a.m. on Saturday. So we will include a link to that under this. But Gary, I think that about does it for this Under the Lights podcast presented by Sinlawn. It's been a fun one. We'll be writing stuff, posting stuff throughout the week, and we'll have a full slate of games this weekend.